Hello, folks. Welcome to the Two Stewards Show. My name's Mark, and I'm here with Brent.
Hello, folks.
Hello, Brent. Good morning.
You got your Coke?
Got my Coke Zero.
So I can't believe after listening to Mike's episode, sorry, listeners, like that was a long episode. But it's just, Mike is a fun guy to talk to, though.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot from him.
What can't you believe?
Oh, that you're still drinking a Coke.
Oh, I know. I'm still firmly in the grasp of the military, industrial, pharmaceutical complex, whatever you want to call it. It's an addiction, Brent. What can I say?
All right. This is an episode to try and learn what's going on in the world a little bit.
Oh, is it? Okay. Also known as a current events update. Yeah, well, there's been some portentous updates.
I got to look that up. What does that mean?
No, there's been a few things that have happened that we want to talk about. So we're going to talk a little bit about CPI, some economic numbers, and I really want to talk about politics, as always.
Yeah, let's go.
The recent by-election in Toronto. So if you haven't been following the news, like, give your head a shake. But no, I mean, some people just don't.
I'm the guy who hasn't been following the news. And when we do these episodes, I start reading the news, and I'm like, oh, there's a good reason I don't follow the news.
It's just depressing.
I know,
right?
It is.
Yeah, and my blood pressure regularly goes up as I watch this stuff. But there was a by-election in the riding of St. Paul's in Toronto. And
just to say, like, okay, I used to commute to Toronto back and forth every day for like 7 or 10 years, and I would listen to talk radio a lot.
Right.
So I would know like the ins and outs of this stuff, and like you just talk about it from every angle and all the experts. And now I don't listen to any of that, and I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, is your life better or worse?
Better. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
So.
But yeah, so St. Paul. This is it's a liberal stronghold. Has been since 1993. That was the last. Then it changed hands from conservative to liberal. It is
Were
wealthy.
You voting back
it's
in
urban. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Wow.
Not in that riding.
I was born. Let's just say that I was born.
Okay. Yeah. So for some people, beyond living memory.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, if you ever watch the election maps during an election night, right, and you see, like, you know, they got the colors, right, because we're dumb and we reduce everything to the lowest common denominator. But you've got, you know, the colors, and you got like these blue
that's
ridings.
Why in the U.S. they just have 2 colors because they can't handle 3 colors. Orange, what is that?
But yeah, you'd see in Ontario, you got some blue on the, you know, the bigger ridings outside the urban centers. Yeah. And then as you go to the urban centers, it's all red or orange for Liberal or NDP. And, you know, Toronto is just going to be mostly red, a little bit of orange in some of the more hardcore downtown ridings. So in any case, a conservative candidate won the by-election, which is like, it's hard to overstate how incredible this is. Even when the Liberals kind of imploded in 2011 and Harper had like a majority, this riding still was Liberal.
Right.
And, you know, Carolyn Bennett has held the riding since 1997. I think she's a relatively well-known Liberal politician. She's got appointed ambassador to, I don't know, to somewhere.
So she's been in since 97?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And, she's a pretty outspoken Liberal member. But anyway, she's ambassador to somewhere. This is kind of like, you know, like a parting gift kind of thing. Well, usually, you know, ambassadors either become ambassadors because they're super competent and you need somebody there, or like in the current government, it's just a plum post that's given away as like, here's something where you don't have to really work hard.
Yeah.
And
you still have status.
Yeah, you have status, you got money, you can travel on the government's dime, all that stuff. So anyways,
and I think government's dime is our dime.
Yeah, exactly. That's our 12 cents.
Yeah.
Because, you know, 2% gets skimmed off the top. But anyways, it was assumed that this was a safe seat, right? And, you know, even with that, Chrystia Freeland, who's you could say is like the number 2 in the Liberal Party, was campaigning there because it was her chief of staff, I think, former chief of staff, that was running. So this is like, okay, we're going to get you in now, right? Here you go. The prime minister was campaigning there, right?
Yeah,
despite
it's they have to get that seat, basically.
Yeah, but I think it was like, I think they thought it was a foregone conclusion because of the history of the riding and because they're so arrogant.
Yeah.
That, how could it be otherwise? And they lost. And it's like devastating, right? You could just see it.
It's like an Oilers fan, kind of.
No, because that could go either way. Like, you really want the Oilers to win, but, it's hockey, it's sports. It could go either way. This was just like, no, this is our birthright, this seat. Yeah. This is what we should have as Liberals. And it changed. So, why was that? So there's a few things being floated out there, right? One is the fact that this had, I think, 80 candidates or something on the ballot. And this is the result of some political activism. It's the first past the post, the longest ballot group or something, I think they call themselves. And they're upset that Trudeau did not enact the electoral reform that he had promised years ago, right? We have a first past the post system.
Yeah.
So whoever gets the most votes wins, basically. As opposed to a lot of other places that will do a runoff, right? You take the top 2 or 3, and then you vote again,
right?
And that way, it eliminates some.
If you have 100 candidates, then
So the amount of votes that these candidates got could have been a deciding factor, but it's really hard to know. Would they have voted for this party or that party? It's hard to say, right? Would the people have voted for them? If they weren't on the ballot, would they have come out to vote? I don't know. Because the difference was about 500 votes in the election, which is not out of about 35,000. So it's a pretty, it's a slim majority. Still a majority. Still one. The other theory is that a lot of Jewish voters were upset with Trudeau's stance and the Liberal Party's stance on the whole Israel-Hamas conflict. And not coming out strongly.
So they protested by voting against.
Yeah. They're like, that's enough, right? That's possible as well.
The CBC says Trudeau says he hears Canadians' concerns and frustrations after a dramatic by-election loss.
Yeah.
He hears them.
He hears them.
Yeah.
And what's he going to do about them? So I think it's a more, there's a broader change in Canadian politics. And we've been talking about this for a while, right? The pendulum has swung so far left that it is now... Oops, sorry.
Yeah, you turned that off.
I thought I did. That it is swinging back the other way. And I mean, you have to remember in Canada what our political spectrum looks like, right? What used to be center is now, you could almost say far right. Or what people in the press will say is far right. If you're a centrist candidate with, a little bit of common sense around, immigration and whatever, maybe not far right, but you're right.
Yeah.
Right. And then, the Liberal Party is so far left, which, this is an interesting idea as we gear up for a general election next year. And I think it will be next year. I don't think they're going to call an election. But what the political landscape will look like. So, a lot of people are saying, like, Trudeau's done. He should step down. He's going to step down. He could. I don't know. I think he has enough hubris and arrogance that he won't. And he still thinks he's the man. He will lead them through the election. But the question is, will the Liberal Party force him to step down? That could happen. But, where's the NDP in this? Because we talked about how the line has shifted in Canadian politics.
Yeah.
And if you look at the past couple of years of government, right, it's a NDP Liberal coalition. And, what has the NDP done? They haven't done anything.
They've agreed with the Liberals.
Yeah. They've just, they're just they're patsies for the Liberals. And, they've made some noise about, you'll read Jagmeet Singh will tweet once in a while about, how can the government do this?
Because you're supporting them.
it's an overwhelming response. Like he just gets ratioed.
Is it a rhetorical question? No, is this tweet?
Well, it's just it's virtue signaling, right? Because everybody's like, hey, dummy, you could stop this.
Yeah.
You could say no. You could force an election, or you could just not support him on this. But of course, he supported him. So I mean, I think to the average voter, there is no difference now between the Liberals and the NDP. The NDP used to be like the haven of the far left and of ideologues on the left side of things, but the Liberals has shifted so far over. They're just eating the NDP's lunch, as far as I'm concerned. So, and I mean the numbers in this by-election showed that as well. I think the winning candidate had 15,500. The next one was just shy of 15,000. Then the Liberals had like 4,000. Right. And then there was another party with 1,000. I can't remember who it was.
You got the chart there. Somewhere.
I could pull it up. I mean, it's good to see the Rhinoceros Party back in action. They were on the ballot with with about 30. I think I lost it.
30 votes?
Yeah, they had about 30 votes. The People's Party had 243, if I remember. So that's Maxime Bernier and, these far right type people. So, anyways, you could make all these excuses and reasons why they lost. I think Canadians and the Canadians in this riding, even though they are so far, so liberal, so left in their politics, have just had enough. Because again, part of it comes down to the pocketbook.
Yeah. So like, what have they had enough with? Is it cultural things? Is it financial? What is your opinion or read on that?
I think it's both. I think the financial component is the biggest. We've said that before, right? People vote with their pocketbooks, and it's so glaringly obvious now that our economy is in shambles. The Liberals have spent, like $1 trillion for nothing.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like, in Keynesian economics, the whole idea is when you're having a hard time, the government steps in, spends money, stimulates the economy, and then you're back to good times, and then they run surpluses, not deficits.
And you always hear them talking about we're investing in Canadians.
Exactly. Investing.
Yeah.
So if you're investing...
It's good to spend the money because we're investing, and that's going to... Yeah.
You get a return when you invest. That's the whole idea, right? We've had no returns.
Hopefully you get a return in 4 years so you get reelected.
Well, and I think people are slowly starting to see this.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe not grasping the full enormity, but people just know, like, the economy's in shambles.
Yeah.
And then if you look a little bit deeper, you're like, we've spent all this money. 43% of our GDP is government spending. That's not a good sign.
Yeah, we've talked about all the hiring they've done, right? Versus the private sector.
Yeah. And like we have nothing to show for it because our gross domestic product has split off from the United States, and we are demonstrably poorer per capita than, like, I can't remember what the state was, Mississippi or something, right?
Yeah.
No offense to Mississippi, but our GDP is lower than anyways, it just, so number one, I think it's always the economy. It's always the pocketbook, which is what drives people to vote. But I think there's probably a strong component of culture in there as well.
Yeah. So
part of it is people are just have just had enough. And this is more, this is anecdotal from me just talking to people. Right, you read about all these policies and drag queen story hour and all this stuff, and it's celebrated in the media. But when you actually talk to people, like I've almost never talked to someone, and I don't just talk to people that I like, who are supportive of this.
Yeah,
are actually supportive of all this, the nonsense that's going on. Right, I think people are just like, it's enough. So the second part is. Culturally, the people who would support this realize that Trudeau and his government are just hypocrites. They don't actually know. Sunny ways was the cry, right? People realize that they're just a bunch of grifters. It's scandal after scandal after. And I mean, if you're cynical, you could just say, like, that's what governments do. They have scandals. There's corruption. But this is on an unprecedented level.
Yeah.
Everywhere you look, every minister is involved in scandal. Somehow, some way, and like just everybody without exception. And a lot of it is financial. A lot of it is lining the pocketbooks. And that's why I made the joke about, it's on our dime, but it's actually 12 cents and 2 cents. 2 cents gets skimmed off the top. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Right. I think that, if there is a majority conservative government, they need to have a royal commission, and they need to figure out what's going on. They need to prosecute people involved, for the corruption, but also for treason, which we haven't talked about too much. I think we mentioned in a previous episode. Yeah, I know we're way off the rails here, but this is related. Eventually it relates back to the economy and to
it's
investing.
funny that you say, like, when you talk to people, and you don't just talk to people that you like. Well, the anecdotal evidence you're getting is like these cultural situation that we're in, where everyone's equal, but whatever, just the nonsense out there, how people on the streets don't support this.
Yeah.
We were doing Solzhenitsyn quotes last episode, I think. But it's like, let your credo be this: let the lie come into the world, let it even triumph, but not through me. And that was an interesting quote. I think I read that the other day, and I was like, well, yeah, it can continue if you just let it, right? If you don't say anything, you don't speak out, and that's what happens, right? And this by-election is a clear evidence of people. Yeah, it's time to speak out. It's time to do something. Here's my vote, and this is what I think, right? And we try and do it on this episode or on the show too. Is just speak about things frankly and openly that I think a lot of people just talk around, and I don't know. Yeah. not to compare Canada to Russian gulag.
No, I know those comparisons are maybe a little bit overdone, but the ideology that's behind it is the same thing, which is just, it's scary, right? I mean,
but if no one draws a line in the sand and stops it, it just continues, right? And if you don't. So my wife was talking about this the other day. Like, okay, we go to Shoppers Drug Mart, we get our stuff, and they're just it's blatantly supporting pride, which as a Christian we don't. Homosexuality is taught in the Bible as an incorrect behavior. Okay, well, it's sinful. So if do we continue to support this organization? And I mean, they're everywhere, and every organization has it. But what action can we take to not show our support? Well, not shop there. Just go to the guy down the street. A nice guy. Apparently, he is even better service than them, and whatever, as a pharmacy, right? So we've kind of made that pivot just as a way of saying, okay, it doesn't feel comfortable to support an organization who believes these things.
Well, so I'm curious. In 5 years, what are we going to have the same amount of rainbow banners everywhere?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. So I went to Toronto. I don't know. It was a couple of weeks ago. I was there, and I was just blown away, by all the rainbow. And it's Pride Month. Even the name Pride. Yeah. Pride is one of the 7 deadly sins. Yeah. And so what do? We take that and we celebrate it as a virtue. So right there, something's backwards. But the just going through, it's this is a religion. Yeah. I have not seen, shy of a major sporting event, you don't see this amount of support for anything anywhere.
Yeah, not even Canada.
It is, yeah. It is the pride religion, because everywhere I turned, there's a flag or there's something mentioning pride, right? To the point where you're this is it's so.
Well, you had the flag up there. Is that what? Doesn't it change every 5 minutes? Or?
Well, yeah, it just got redesigned. Again.
This is a great business to be in if you print signs or flag. You.
Whoa! I almost fell off my chair laughing.
So he's taking the whole table with him. Yeah, but I mean, you got a customer, they change the design, and you come back, it's I need this flag updated.
Because they just redesigned it to include intersex.
If you listen to Albert Mohler talk about stuff like this, and he has the briefing, he always talks about it, and it's LGBTQ plus, and that plus is the catch, right? It's
the proliferation. Well,
it's defined by any and everything kind of thing.
It's not even the catch, right? So you're seeing a divide in, I don't know, from just what I see on Twitter, for example, right? You're just seeing a divide in this community where people are this is enough, right? And, the whole intersex, I've seen a number of people who are who on Twitter who are hey, I'm intersex, and like, leave me out of this.
Yeah.
I have a genetic condition that affects like less than 1% of the people in the world.
Yeah.
And you're dragging me into this whole debate. Like, this has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Leave me out of it. And, you know, you never see, I don't know, maybe there's one out there, but generally you don't see people who actually suffer from intersex conditions out there campaigning for trans rights and all this other stuff. Because, like, that's not...
They've learned how to live with their situation, and they're not supporting the movement.
Yeah, they're not trying to get into women's bathrooms and stuff. Well, no, it's just I should maybe not be on Twitter so much, but like, the more you delve into this world, the sicker it is, and it's just clearly a bunch of sick fantasists, and you know, maybe this is hate speech. Yeah. But the whole trans movement is like, it's unconscionable. People say that it's about love, and like, no, it's not. It's about mutilation of children. It's about men who have psychological problems trying to get into women's bathrooms. And like, clearly, all you have to do is watch any video by any trans activist, and you're like, there's something wrong with this person. Yeah. And like, people have all kinds of problems, but we shouldn't celebrate them. We shouldn't enable them. Like, you can't, if somebody's schizophrenic, you don't affirm the voices in their head. You're like, okay, we have you know, you've got a problem, and we're going to get you the help you need. We haven't done that. And, you know, to the point where the Cancer Society is it Canada, Ontario, you know, apologizes for referring to a cervix and instead says you may want to refer to this as a front hole. And like, can you even make this up? This is a medically based society. Yeah. And they're talking about front holes. Number one, that's not what the cervix is anyways. But
is that your nose or your mouth? Like,
just, you know, it's beyond the pale. It's so crazy. But, you know, the whole pride movement, though, right? There's a lot of, you know, old-fashioned gay people who are like, you know, this is enough. I don't want anything to do with the trans movement. But it started with them. Yeah. And it started with the rejection of the truth. God's truth, of a fundamental truth, that he created man and women and made them to be together. Yeah. And so, you know, you have all these gay rights activists who are saying like, oh, the trans movement doesn't represent me. Like, no, it's a natural outcropping of what you fought for. If you fought for the degeneracy of truth, and the denial of God's word, like, this is a natural outcropping of that. And it, you know, it reminds me of the French Revolution, and like, I don't know, maybe every major, the Bolshevik Revolution, right? Where the revolution just gets progressively worse and worse. Yeah. Or progressively more violent, and, you know, more people get canceled or killed in many cases, right? Just the revolution eats its young. And it just keeps going and going and going until it implodes. And I think that's what we're seeing here now. So that's my little rant on...
a little rant.
A little rant on the rainbow thing. But so this is all wrapped up, though, in... Like, I think this election loss is emblematic of that. Yeah. Right? We're seeing, you know, we've talked about it, a little bit of a return to truth, where people are like just searching, like I'm awash in the sea of rainbow colors.
Everyone's broken, right? We can acknowledge that. And I think lately I feel like it's been easier to talk to people about that, because like, just in our neighborhood, walking around talking to people, and you have a conversation right away, it kind of goes to the pain they're experiencing, right? Yeah. There's so many lonely people who are living on their own, or, you know, have, you know, relationship problems. There's so many people who are undergoing financial stress, right? Just, like, you know, it's a few young couples in our neighborhood we were just talking to, and like, we have a house, but we bought it and we can't afford it, so we're going to have to do something in the next whatever, right? So like, that's adding to this, you know, all of these cultural things, everything, like, everyone's broken, right? Yeah. And that reality is coming out more and more, it seems like, right?
Well, people
when things
are
are going
it.
well,
yeah,
then, or relatively well in the economy, and, you know, things are politically stable, and you don't really talk about these things as much. But especially since, you know, the pandemic and everything has washed over, and now we're past that and we're experiencing these financial difficulties, it's just easier to talk about these things and it's more apparent.
I mean, it's a little bit sad that it takes the economy to be in shambles for people to see this, but I mean, that's just whatever.
Well, you talk about the pain, right? Like pain is information. Pain. Yeah. When you experience the pain, then you seek for a solution to it, right? And I think you've mentioned that about Bitcoin before too, right? Like you have the monetary system is in shambles. Well, what do we look for? Let's look for a solution to that. And,
So return to the truth, hopefully. So CPI numbers came out, speaking of truth and lies.
Right back into it.
Oh, man, do you believe any of it? But, whether you believe it or not, inflation
I believe
is
the
up.
Numbers they put out.
Do you?
Yeah.
Wow, Brent.
Like they made them
what
up.
What happened to you?
But I believe they made them up.
You believe they exist?
Yeah.
Okay. No, so their latest CPI print came out. It was 2.9% versus 2.7%. So that means there's a 2.9% increase in goods and services over the year compared to last year at the same time. Last print was 2.7%. So that means it's trending up. So inflation is getting worse again. And again, if do you believe it's 2.9%? Like, no, nobody does, right?
Yeah.
But at least even in the numbers that they give us, they're still going up. So this is not good news for the government,
rates.
anyways. But for interest rates, I don't know. What do you?
Well, so the Bank of Canada and the monetary policy, like they need a downward trajectory to inflation, right, in order to lower rates. So that's what they're looking for is this sustained downward trajectory. So if you have a pivot and all of a sudden inflation jumps back up, that calls into question the viability of lowering rates, right?
Yeah.
So they released this report. So the Bank of Canada, the governors get together, the governing council, and they have deliberations, right? So then they release kind of like the summary, the press release, or the minutes of their meeting. And I was just reading through that. It's on the Bank of Canada website for anybody who's really nerdy. But you just read through this, and it makes you aware of how little people know. Like the people in charge running this, making the monetary policy, making these big decisions about interest rates, which have all of these effects on the government, the cost of the government's debt, the cost of everyone's debt, business insolvencies, like all of these things.
Yep.
And it's just there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people in a room. I mean, and you can just read through this and I pulled out a few quotes, but they higher savings could be an indicator of this. It could also reflect that. It's like, all okay. kinds of statements of this. It could be that, or it could be that, and they have no idea, right?
And they're different things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's higher savings could be an indication of greater cautiousness among consumers as they wait for economic conditions to improve. It could also reflect reduced spending for those households anticipating higher debt repayments when they renew their mortgage. Like they see the fact that higher savings, okay, but they don't know why, and they don't know if they make a decision one way or the other what that's going to impact, right? Are people anticipating that they're going to be more cautious, so then we're going to save more, or they're just anticipating a lot of these back reasons that they have no idea, right?
Well, and it's higher savings for who?
Yeah.
Who is able to save in this economy? The only people who can save are people who are actually making bank, who are making good money. Nobody else is saving any money.
No.
But, are they taking that into account?
Well, they said the savings rate was higher than expected. Okay, so what do they expect? Maybe they expected it to be really low. I don't know.
Well, it could also be an indication that the people who have money, who have disposable income, aren't spending it on things like starting businesses, stimulating the economy. They're just sitting on their money because they're very cautious about what's going to happen.
Yeah. So if you look at the 4 key indicators that the Bank of Canada, these people watch, it's the balance of supply and demand in the economy, corporate pricing behavior, inflation expectations, and wage growth relative to productivity growth. And that last one, I feel like our productivity growth is in Canada. It's in the news and people are saying it's a crisis.
Yeah.
Our productivity has just gone off a cliff.
It's not growth.
No. So anyways, those are the factors they kind of keep an eye on.
Okay, so one of the factors Like 3 of the factors you mentioned are actual measurable things that are happening in the economy. One of them is just, you said inflation expectations.
Yeah, so it's
what people think is going to happen.
What people think about what is potential. Yeah, exactly. So, and the inflation that they report, and you mentioned like the CPI went up and down. Yeah, but they can change the metrics, right? And we've talked in the past about how inflation is calculated, how this CPI basket of goods comes together. And they've recently made some changes too, and I suspect they do this more frequently. But they have this basket of goods, right?
Yeah.
So, inflation is the measure of, these price of these goods and services going up or down over time. So if they can track, the cost of rent, the cost of food, the cost of transportation, whatever, and they just give a weighting to every single one of those things, and then they come up with a CPI number, right? But that basket of goods, well, if they change the weighting, right, now all of a sudden the CPI can be altered in their favor. Oh man.
Because what are the cost of mortgages or mortgage interest payments?
Yeah, so mortgage interest cost is a huge component. What is it? So shelter inflation was still high and remained the largest contributor in total CPI inflation. So
go figure.
Shelter is made up, like in their summary here, shelter is like a little heading, and then there's rent, mortgage interest cost, homeowners replacement cost, other owned accommodation expenses. So like that bucket is the highest weighted fact. Like it's 28% of the CPI. So it's a big section of the CPI. But sorry, you're going to say something.
Oh, well, I was going to not interrupt you, but like,
so now
why wait?
The mortgage interest cost component of that has been weighted differently now. So it was at 3.46%. Now it's at 5.2%. So
they're adding 1.5%. Yeah.
But have mortgage interest costs gone up or down? Like that's high right now, right? Mortgage interest cost, because the interest rates are high, is high. So that is going to negatively affect the CPI, right? It's going to make it look worse.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is if they lower the interest rate, right, that has a bigger impact on CPI, the total CPI reading. So if you're going to lower the interest rate and you want to try and get CPI down, you just say, oh yeah, we lowered it a 0.25 point, and now the CPI drops faster. So it's an interesting way to manipulate all these metrics to say, like, we did this and now this is happening, but like our goal is being reached, right? It's
well, and so does anybody believe that inflation is only 3% over the last year? Like, has any of your
it's 3% for like maybe a few people who don't have any.
Maybe
don't need to purchase anything.
If you live somewhere and if you eat stuff, it's been more than 3%.
Yeah.
And then if you drive, it's even worse.
Yeah.
Well, because the problem is everybody needs to live somewhere and everybody needs to eat something.
So if you live in your parents' basement and eat their food,
then okay, maybe you're not doing bad.
Yeah.
But for the vast majority of people, especially on the lower end of the income spectrum, they're getting hit harder.
Yeah.
By this. Sorry, you said 20% of the CPI weighting is related to housing.
Yeah, 28.57 is the new like shelter weighting, right?
Yeah.
So food is 16%, but then there's household operations, furnishing and equipment. That's 13%. So that's kind of under, like, it's not the shelter expense, but it's like, your household expenses. And then there's clothing, 4%, transportation, 16%, recreation, 10%, health, personal care is 5%. So
okay,
by far the biggest weighting is shelter, 28%.
Yeah. But when I don't know if you actually calculate this or not, but I kind of look at it roughly when we're doing an application for a tenant. Have you seen anybody in the last, I don't know how long, where their rent payment was going to be 28% of their income? When's the last time you saw that?
Yeah, no.
Like
we usually do at 33%, like 1/3 kind of thing. As
are you
our
hitting
target.
that?
No, not all the time.
No.
Right? So we try not to go over 50% unless it's a unique circumstance. Or like 50% if they have a cosigner kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So
that's more in line with what we're seeing.
Of your gross income.
Yeah.
So it's somewhere between 35 and 45% probably is where most people are landing for us. Right?
Yeah. So I mean that right there, that tells you, is the CPI chart like,
we just debunked it on the Two Stewart Show.
Done. Okay, move on. We'll fix it. No, but it's just I don't know.
So what happens
Further
is
evidence.
people will like spend, instead of 28% on shelter, they'll spend 35, and then their recreation, education, and reading will go down. So it's like 10%. Yeah, are they reading? Yeah, no. Twitter. The cost of that didn't go up. Okay, so then that goes down to 5%, right? Or
yeah, it comes out of something.
Yeah,
and like just I don't know. We have,
because unlike the government, people have limited means, so they can't just create the money that they need to buy pay their rent, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and we have some apartments that we rent that are on the lower end of the, that are just, they're small and they're cheap, or they're affordable, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. And like these are the people we're seeing that are getting hit the worst and are having to make accommodations, like having 2 people in a 1-bedroom apartment that are not like a couple. And like a good chunk of their income is going towards housing. Like if they were by themselves, it would be like 75% of their income. So they have to make some kind of, have a roommate or whatever, where it's not really appropriate. But these are the people getting hit the hardest and the worst. And I don't know what my point is there, but just kind of what we're seeing on the streets as far as the economy and why people's minds might be changing.
We had Ben Rabideau on. We got to get him back on the show to kind of break down some of this. But his report, he just on this mortgage interest index change, where they've increased the weighting of the mortgage interest cost. He said, well, to say it differently, with the Bank of Canada now cutting, with mortgage interest rate representing a much larger share of the CPI basket, Statistics Canada effectively just engineered a much weaker inflation reading later this year and through 2025. That will give the Bank of Canada even more confidence that inflation will continue to trend lower, right? So they've manipulated the metrics to give the Bank of Canada more confidence to lower the rates and to say, hey, look, see, we did it. Like it's another comment just I pulled out of this summary from their discussions was, you can probably put that down because I don't want to share my whole thing here, but
confidential information.
Confidential.
Folks.
So members agreed that restrictive monetary policy had worked to restrain activity and slow the rate of inflation. And it's just like that comment it's like these people can just create policies that are restrictive or permissive, I guess, and they will restrain activities and slow, like, it's just so strange that 7 people in a room can just be like, now everybody has pain in their life, and like, now it's easy. It's like, hey, it has worked, we agree that together that it worked, and it's almost sinister.
Well, you need like
I get frustrated by that, because it's like, who are you to say that this is how things should go?
I think you need just a couple of like regular Joe Blows on there, like a garbage collector, and I don't know, like a framer or something, being like, guys, what is wrong with you? Have you seen the price of beer lately? Like, get out of here. Like just a little injection of reality. Like, come on, right? So, okay, we were talking about housing starts, and you had some interesting numbers. So this is a little bit obscure maybe, but I think it will have a big effect, right? The CMHC changes.
Yeah, so maybe for people who are following the CMHC updates, but there's probably a lot of people who aren't. But in the past year or two, a big incentive in housing construction has been in the rental, like purpose-built rental space, right?
Yeah.
So if you think about, if you're a developer, where can you get access to financing? What's the cheapest financing? Well, in Canada lately, that option has been CMHC, and CMHC is just insurance on loans. So if you meet the CMHC criteria, and they have a special MLI Select program, you have 3 buckets. You have your affordability, right? So if you can make units that are affordable, you get a certain amount of points. If you have accessible units, that's the other one, you get more points. If you get energy efficiency or reduced greenhouse gas emissions or whatever, you get more points. So, and when you get 100 points, you can get a longer amortization, low interest rate, you get, higher loan to value. So it's really beneficial financing, right?
Okay, so just quickly, CMHC is the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. This is a government-run organization that underwrites insurance for, used to be like, mostly first-time home buyers.
Yeah, they still do all that.
Yeah, they do that, but they also do a lot of other stuff around financing, which is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So when people want to build 5 units or more at the same time, right? So this is multi-unit housing, which is like, this is important, this is what we need. We don't, I like single-family housing, but that's not what we really need to support
the volume
our
of
population.
housing units created by building one single-family home or a subdivision of single-family homes is not what is going to help.
Yeah, so you're
prices.
talking about people who are in the multifamily space.
Building 50 units, 100 units, 200 units.
Yeah. And the difference in these projects getting built or not is often in the financing cost.
If they can get good financing terms, the project is a go. It's profitable. It's beneficial for the community. Obviously, you're getting extra housing. Some of those units might be affordable. Some of them, the whole thing's energy efficient, whatever, right? But then the developer can actually make the project go forward because the financing works. So,
and it might be surprising for people to know, but housing generally is a for-profit thing in Canada. The government doesn't build any houses. The way they subsidize or the way they can help is either grants to people building affordable housing or through programs, through just letting people build homes. And creating favorable economic conditions, but then also through some of these programs like offering preferred financing rates, right? People are not, we're not going to have homes built if it doesn't make financial sense. I want to stress that, right? People don't understand where housing comes from. It's not the government, people.
But in a way,
private wealth, private individuals, corporations who build housing, and if it doesn't make sense,
it's not going
to build. If you come to me and say, "Hey, I got this housing project. I want you to invest $500,000, and at the end, I'm going to give you $400,000 back."
But you can pat yourself on the back because you made a couple of housing units.
Yeah. So
feel good for these low-cost, affordable units you created and all the money you spent on doing it.
So let's say Brent bought me a beer or two and he convinced me this is a really good idea. Well, I'm going to go home to my wife and I'm going to be like, all right, honey, we're going to invest in this.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to make all the same arguments and she's going to look at me like, what are you talking about? I want to help people. We'll do that on our own dime, but not with our retirement funds. What are you smoking?
Yeah.
And you know what? That project's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make that point there.
And money goes where it's treated best, right? If you're an investor, you're savvy and you're deploying funds or you're managing other people's funds. You're trying to pick the best, most viable projects too, right? That are professionally managed. Anyways, so the changes in CMHC are a big deal, right? So that's been the driving force of a lot of these new housing starts in the last couple of years, and now all of a sudden they changed the criteria and it kind of shuts off the tap. So some of the projects that are in the pipeline, actually a lot of them, especially in the major metros like Ontario, BC, like the big cities, where they changed the criteria. Now all of a sudden those projects are no longer viable. So what are we going to see in 5 years? Are we going to see more units? Are we going to see a worse crisis? Are we going to see... where's the supply going to come from?
I thought the government was building 40 gajillion new homes by 2030.
Yeah, I don't know
if
they're for human beings or not.
Okay. Oh, is it holes? Like hibernation holes for grizzly bears?
Exactly.
No, but remember the government was like, it's a house every minute or something?
Yeah. So
is that happening?
What they did with CMHC was they dialed back the energy efficiency, right? So they kind of noticed a little bit of a loophole saying, well, the building code in Ontario and BC, it allows for... basically the criteria to meet the program to get the financing was the building code here. Yeah. So if you did a normal build, you're getting the financing, basically. And now they changed it to be more stringent. You can't get the full number of points in the program, get all the financing without doing some of these other criteria like affordability. And that really affects your pro forma, right? Because now if you have to do all this energy efficiency anyways, and you only get 50 points, and then you have to do some other criteria like affordability, you got to lock in your rents. Now on your income side, your project's just not going to pencil, right? Because you're not getting as much income, so you can't justify this. And
well, accessibility is the other criteria, right?
Yeah.
But that is increased construction costs if you make units accessible.
Yeah. So it's just stifling the number of new housing starts, and we need new housing. We need to house we have record population again this year, right? And we need to house those people.
Wait a minute, that's Brent. I thought the government said they were stopping all that and they're cutting down on all these visas.
It looks like it's plateauing, and it's gonna. I mean, it can't be sustained at this high. Whatever, and the sentiment's changed towards immigration.
Do you mean the immigration minister lied to us? Oh, man. Well, for all the noise they made about, we're stopping this, we're changing that, like the numbers are the same.
Yeah.
Like, what did we have last year? 1.3 million newcomers?
Well,
in a country of 40 million?
Canada needs population growth.
Don't get me started on we need this, Brent.
This is what we hear, right? We
fine.
need to increase because we need the GDP to go up. But per capita GDP is going down. So it's a bit of a mess.
Not true, obviously.
Yeah.
You know what would help, Brent? People had more babies.
And worked harder.
I'm just saying. Well, that too, but common and babies that work hard. We need hardworking babies in this country.
But so if you look at the trend in single family building permits and housing starts, that's just been going down. I mean, ever since the 80s, 90s, right? It's just kind of this. Yeah, but it was still happening. You still see all these subdivisions, right? Do you have the numbers there? So, in let's go to 1985. It was 80,000 housing starts. Now we're looking at
is that single family or just housing?
Single family building permits in Canada.
80,000.
80,000. Yeah.
Okay.
So 1980, but now in 2020 we're down to 60,000. Now we're down to I call it 50 something thousand, 50,000.
Okay, what's the projection though? Because I can swear I read somewhere that for next year it was going to be 5,000 or something like that.
A lot lower.
Well, not almost nothing.
Yeah. So I can see that. And it makes sense, right? Because if the projects are not viable, then why would you pull a building permit to do it?
Yeah.
This the building permits kind of is a indicator of housing starts and then sales.
Because you can't build a house without a permit.
Yeah.
I mean, you could, but not advisable.
I don't have that in front of me, the projection.
I'm pretty sure I saw somewhere is in that 5,000 range from 40 or 50,000.
Yeah.
It's just whoa.
Yeah. So crazy. That's just less supply.
Well, that's single family homes. That's fine. What about condos though, Brent? Right?
Yeah. So everyone wants condos are more affordable, but new condo sales are way down. It's just ridiculous. They're down from 35,000 to 10,000 in the past year, and
that's sales of existing
sales. So if you think about it, they sell the condos, and then a couple of years later, then they build. It's 18 months kind of behind. Then they start to build them, and then you have them finished, and people move in, right? So that timeline on a condo to get people living in them, right, is at the end of the day what you want.
Yeah.
But if you look at the sales and they're way down, what can we expect with construction and actual housing units being created? Well, in 18 months from now, that's going to be way down. So if single family homes trending down, they're not pulling permits. Condos dropped off a cliff, and the next 3 to 5 years, we're just not going to see supply in the condo market. With new housing units being created, and CMHC changed their criteria, so all these affordable rental units or these rental buildings are not being put on the market. What are we doing?
So what you're saying is, the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, because you can't just spin up housing, right? You can't just be I'm going to build 50,000 homes tomorrow.
Yeah, Ben says it really succinctly in this sense. He says, we continue to sow the seeds for future supply crisis. So
we already have a supply crisis.
We have a supply crisis, but now we're going to have a future supply crisis, and these are the seeds of it, right? If you if you're analyzing a project as somebody looking at CMHC, and then all of a sudden the program changes and it comes into effect in June or whatever, and then that project's not going to happen. Okay, well, the whole thing, it takes a while to get these things rolling, right? Like to build a 200 unit, like you got to do a lot of work.
Well, yeah. What's the time span on something like that, right? From just the first thought.
Yeah, it's
years and years. Like, oh, I might build some. Oh, like here's a piece of land. It's So
anyway, that's the supply side of things that doesn't look great for the next. And you've heard it, right? Like single family homes, kind of the unicorn property, because it's not viable to build even with CMHC, and a lot of people can't afford it. So if you own one of these, like it's going to be a unique product in 20 years, right? To have a single family detached home.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so that was the supply side. We're going to zero, but at least on the demand side, right? We're reducing. Oh no, we're not reducing the demand, right? Sorry, you said it's plateauing, which is not decreasing. It's
we hit a record in the past year with with population growth, right? So we're hitting new records on that side. That's the demand side. But yeah, there's good reason to think that that's going to kind of change. It's not going to be record levels. I don't want to say that because who knows. But
who knows, right? Like, but when we're still talking over 1 million people a year. If you add in non-permanent residents who, they're talking about tightening down those programs, but are they really? Or are they just going to effectively be another path to citizenship? 1 million
this
people
is where
a year.
We've seen protests, right? If they these people come here on student visas or work visas, and they're like, I deserve to stay here. Like if I'm good enough to work, I'm good enough to stay, right?
Yeah.
And they're young males. They're angry. Like what's the government gonna like? That's a political decision that they could very easily. I think what they're asking for too is to be grandfathered in, right? Like can you? Yeah. Well, what is? Some politician has to make a stand, and they're going to have to decide, and it's a bit of a tricky situation, right? You send them back. What's that saying to future immigration? They're like, there's a lot of politics, I guess, that has to happen on that front.
Yeah, and I mean, it's sort of side note.
We're good at side notes, eh?
We should just call the program Side Notes.
Side notes by
No,
Mark.
but I've noticed so many young people or parents even just putting out a plea for like, hey, my kid needs a job this summer. So we're talking like high school age kids, right? And they cannot find a darn thing.
Yeah.
Because every job, the traditional like McDonald's and whatever else, every job has been taken up by
a low wage starter job.
Yeah, is taken.
By a robot or by
no, by someone who's here on a work permit.
Temporary.
Yeah. So, I don't know. What does that do to our economy? I don't know. Maybe you need to find more volunteer opportunities.
So this is where I go back to like these comments in this report where it's just eye-opening how the economy is managed, all these political incentives from all different angles pulling in different directions.
Yeah.
And we're just fallible human beings trying to make a system work, right? And like it's so broken and so twisted that like can any one person, improve it or save it?
Well, that's the question, right? By all accounts, it looks like we're headed for a change in government next year.
But that still doesn't change the underlying system.
Well, what are they going to be able to do, right? We're talking about housing. So this is a multi-year issue, right? They're not going to be able to fix that. Even if they make changes to CMHC financing and to whatever, right?
They're not really incentivized to fix it, right? They're just incentivized to get reelected, and it's so difficult, man.
Well, I mean, one way would be like, okay, let's make life better for Canadians and housing more affordable, but that's not even in a 4-year term. You're not going to do that, right? You can start to sort of turn the ship. You can look at GDP, right? GDP has been separated from U.S. Since 2015.
Yeah.
Like to the downside. And nobody said anything, right? That's, what is that, 9 years?
We were saying it a whole lot.
we were, but the general populace hasn't noticed this. You only notice it when you can't afford your groceries anymore, right? Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, yeah, since this particular date, things have gotten worse. But so it's the will of the people, I guess, and then just the ability to, like, how do you how do you turn the ship around?
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
And
that was a concern, right? The divergence of the Canadian economy versus the U.S. and how our household debt ratios are way higher than the U.S.
Yeah.
And the real GDP per capita, right? Like we've talked about that, is way lower. So yeah, our economy is going a completely different direction. But the Bank of Canada actually in this summary, like they basically said, oh, well, like it doesn't really matter. It's not a big deal. Because they list their factors, and the exchange rate, like between the U.S. and Canada, is not a concern to them. They're not going like, oh, this is a big deal. If we were to change interest rates, one of the big concerns we would have is,
the U.S. Canadian dollar.
Yeah. So they don't make that a big concern, which is kind of like eye-opening, right?
Well, to be fair, they have a mandate, right? They have a certain couple of things they have to. I mean, it used to be just employment and inflation were their two main things they had to control. And like, okay, you got to give them like, here's your guidelines and stick to that. And the rest is sort of politics. So like, I kind of get that. They're not they can't worry about everything, but at some point you got to, I think it's mostly political is what I'm saying, is where the change has to come from. And can that happen in a few years? No, this is going to be like, this was a problem that took 9 years to create.
Yeah.
And, if you look at central banking and all that stuff, well, you could say this was 50 years in the making, right? It's not turning around in 2 years or 4 years or, I don't know, even 10 years, right? So what's the prognosis for Canadians? We've been talking about this a lot, right?
All right. What's the answer here? We got to spin the positive spin at the end of the episode.
Oh, okay. Oh, we're going for positive this time.
Yeah, this time positive. Because every time we do an episode like this, it's like, all right, Mark, let's just go home and cry.
Well, no, we've talked a lot about people looking at investing in the U.S. or elsewhere. We've seen just numbers of capital flight from Canada, right? Yeah. So either foreign investors who have stopped investing in Canada, and maybe they're just, the money laundering is no good anymore. That's a big percentage, I'm sure. But yeah, just foreign investment is dropping in Canada, which is also like, we need foreign investment, right? Of people in Canada taking their money and going elsewhere, right? So yeah, what's the answer? So I feel like the divide between sort of haves and have-nots is just going to get worse and worse. People with assets are going to be able to take advantage of that. So on one hand, there's that impulse to flee. But on the other hand, like you said, single-family homes. And like, I think we made the call a couple episodes again, right? Like the death of the single-family home. Like nobody's going to build these things anymore other than luxury homes. Like probably ever in Canada. So if you have one, better hang on to it. And if you can get one, leverage that to get more, right? So, I don't know. It's I guess good news if you're an investor and you have some time to kind of sit on these assets. Like, interest rates are going to go up and down and cash flow might be tough right now. But like the equity growth you're going to see, I think is going to be like, astronomical, right?
Because they can't change the system, right? The monetary system that we operate on, or they can't. They could if they wanted to, I guess, but they don't have the will to do it because it's too advantageous for them to continue to finance their wishes to get reelected by printing money, right? So that's the underlying system, and you can't change that. So if that's the incentive structure that we're built upon, and that's where things are headed, like just more money printing, more debt, we have to look at, if you're trying to store the value of your time, you're trying to just simple, right? Store the value of your time into the future for the next generation. Be prudent with your money, act stewardly. What you want to own something scarce. You want to own something that's desirable and scarce. And it's not money. It's not Canadian dollar. And, you talked about people moving to the U.S. There's a good case for that, right? Because a divergence between Canadian dollar and U.S. dollar makes sense. People talk about capital gains tax going up. They keep talking about, freezing bank accounts, and it's government control over money, seizing assets, whatever. They just don't like that, so they move, right? And people who move are the people with money. Like like we keep saying, this money goes where it's treated best. It's just gonna squeeze. It's gonna go out of their grasp, go where it's treated best. Whether it's the States or wherever else. But yeah, people are in search of scarce, desirable assets. And I think more and more houses, real estate in general is becoming scarce. And everyone needs it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, people are pretty down on Canada, but I mean, we could, as much as I've said we're in trouble and it's going to take a long time to turn it around, there's a few things government could do to really change things so that in 10 years we could be like, wow, this is a different economy, right? Yeah. We could invest in energy and oil and gas because we have even so much. That's a no-brainer. Yeah, deregulate. Just let's get some jobs going.
Yeah.
Right? You could make a huge...
Yeah, we're sitting on really good assets there as a country.
We have a ton of potential as a country. Tapping. And we've squandered all that. We've got we want every car to be electric by 2035 or something, right? It's a pipe dream. Yeah, even if you were committed, it can't happen.
The external combustion engine. The combustion's happening in that country.
Well, interesting, right? I know we're getting to the end here, but Toyota said we're not doing electric vehicles. We've developed a new internal combustion engine, or like a more efficient one. So this is not probably a bunch of dumb people.
I called that. I don't know.
Did you?
Yeah, I don't believe in electric cars. I don't know.
Oh, well, you don't believe they exist?
I believe they exist, but I think the pendulum's swinging back the other way.
I think so too. Yeah. People are just like, no, we can't afford the infrastructure.
No.
But what was I saying? So they're developing a new gas engine, essentially, or investing more in making them better. And that's where we need to go. And they see this. They see all these stupid mandates, Government of Canada saying every vehicle's got to be. So they're basically betting that's not going to happen. Yeah. It can't happen. Yeah. Well, because they can, and if you just add up numbers, just grade school math, you'd be like, it's going to cost this much to upgrade the grid. It's going to cost this much to make sure there's enough capacity. We need this amount of copper and this amount of precious metals, right?
You add it all up.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's the same thing in
more
housing,
than the GDP of the country.
The municipality says, we want to create more houses in this neighborhood. You can now do 4 units on this lot. And the electrical supplier says, by the way, you can only go up to 200 amps. And the city's like, and then the financing guy's like, you have to make everything energy efficient, no greenhouse gases, everything electric. And the electrical supplier's like, you can only get 200 amps. You can only put 1 unit in here, pretty much. If you're going to run everything electric. Yeah, it's just they don't talk to each other, and it doesn't work. And I think the pendulum's swinging the other way. Anyways.
Yeah. Well, so just quickly to end off, I read another article by Zero Hedge.
Yeah.
They're a great follow on Twitter and wherever else if you want, right? And they're just outlining the way that there will be no meaningful change in the U.S. as well, even if there is a different government elected. And they had 17 reasons or something of why it's basically a one-party system.
Yeah.
And how nothing meaningful will change unless there's a huge change at the top that kind of trickles its way down. So
or a change at the bottom that trickles its way down.
I think you're right. It has to come from the bottom. And to a certain extent, I think that's also true in Canada. Culturally, we can make some changes, but even if you look at the modern Conservative Party, it's this was the Liberal Party 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, right? So, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But you said we're supposed to end on a positive note. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I
guess for investment.
Yeah, we can talk about real estate investment. We can talk about Bitcoin as an interesting option, which I think has a lot of legs. And, talk about something scarce, right? We've identified that's a limited supply monetary tool.
Yeah.
And the likelihood in the next 15, 20 years for governments like Canada and the U.S. to just say put Canada on the same par as the U.S., but governments like that in the Western world to adopt Bitcoin as their reserve currency is pretty slim, in my opinion. But you can opt out of the system, right? And that's what you see, I think, culturally too. It's we're done with this. We don't listen to the news. I'm opting out of this system.
Yep.
This is the different alternative. And we had Mike on last episode talking about food, and it's a similar sort of thing, right? This mentality of, well, you have the legacy food system, and it's producing this, and these are the health consequences over 50 years of doing that. Well, I'm opting out. I'm just going to buy my food from Mike and get quality, nutritious food from down the road. And, you know, it might cost a bit more, but like, I just don't believe the nonsense, right? That's funded by fiat. It's just an interesting transition, right? And I think younger people are catching on as well. Like if your savings devalued and you just can't get in the housing market, and like you can't afford anything, like you're just questioning everything, right?
And this is not the fringe anymore who's like, I'm opting out, I'm gonna, like the hermit, go live in the woods, right?
Yeah.
This is like regular people.
Yeah.
So we should mention, or I don't know if we should, but I'm gonna, the conference coming up. So there's a big Bitcoin conference coming up in Tennessee in July, but just 2 days before that, we have the TGFB conference. What is it? The Economics of Glory.
Yeah.
So this is, it is Bitcoin focused, but also I think the first day is largely focused on economics
from a Christian
perspective. Yeah. Oh, render to God.
Yeah, render to God, stewardship, dominion, and the economics of glory. That's July 24th and 25th. And shout out to Jordan Bush. We had him on the show.
Yeah.
You can go back and check that episode out. But yeah, he's putting this conference on. And I think it's going to be an interesting time. We're going to go down there, check it out. So
yeah. So if you want to tag along, sign up and...
Well, I think that's the solution, right? Is talking about these things from a Christian worldview, because that's ultimately the truth. We have an eternal perspective that grounds us. That none of this, in the grand scheme of things, makes any difference. Like we belong to Christ, and that's our identity. But yeah, we do live in this world, and we have to grapple with the political situation, the cultural situation. We have to be a light, and we have to use what we've been given, and that's something I hope to learn at this conference a little bit more, right? How to manage stewardship. Should learn something.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I often point out all the problems in our country, in our system, in the world, right? But yeah, we have to be effective and carry on.
Yeah, so and there's problems in our own hearts too, right? Can't point the fingers at all these politicians saying you guys. It's like, well, no, I am also a sinner, right? So okay. On that note.
On that happy note, thanks for listening again, folks. We'll see you again next time. And until then,
steward your wealth wisely. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Two Stewards Show. If you like my voice better, click subscribe.
And if you like my voice better, click share.
If you like both, give us a 5-star rating.
To interact with the show, feel free to reach out at hello@twostewards.ca.
We'll see you in the next episode. In the meantime, steward your wealth wisely.